One single chain link. Not the whole chain, not the anchor itself, just one link. It weighs 350 pounds. That's roughly the same as 2 full-grown NFL linemen standing on top of each other, and that's just one link. A Nimitz-class carrier has over 700 of those links on each side of the bow. The total? The entire anchor system on one carrier, anchor plus chain, can tip the scales at over 165 tons. To put that in perspective, that's about the same as stacking 100 fully loaded pickup trucks on top of each other. And something that heavy has to be installed, lowered, raised, maintained, and in some cases, handed down from a retired ship to one still actively serving. In this video, I'm going to break down the whole process, from how this massive anchor gets installed when the ship is still being built, to the intense work inside dry dock where a single worn-out link can put an entire fleet at risk. And there's one story about an anchor from a legendary ship that almost never made it into the news, and it might be the most fascinating part of all. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start from the ground up. When most people hear aircraft carrier anchor, they picture a big chunk of metal shaped like the anchor emoji, maybe a couple of tons, tossed overboard, done. Reality is a lot more intense than that. A Nimitz-class carrier has 2 anchors, one on each side of the bow. Each one weighs about 30 tons or nearly 60,000 pounds. That's roughly the same as stacking 20 full-size pickup trucks on top of each other. The Gerald R. Ford class is a bit different. They use a more modern, lighter design, around 15 tons per anchor, but with a longer chain. Why lighter? Because new generation high-strength steel can deliver the same holding power at a lower weight. Pure engineering efficiency. But the anchor itself is only half the story. The chain is where things get seriously wild. The total chain length on a Nimitz class can reach about 1,080 feet per side. That's roughly 3 NFL football fields laid end to end. And the Gerald R. Ford class, even longer, up to about 1,440 feet. And each individual link is not small. Every link is about 28 inches long, nearly 18 inches wide, made from high-grade forged steel, built to resist saltwater corrosion, take the punishment of scraping against the seafloor, and handle lateral pulling forces of hundreds of tons when the ship gets slammed by a storm.
Let me say that again just so it lands. One chain link equals 350 pounds. A newborn baby weighs around 7 pounds. One chain link on an aircraft carrier? 50 times heavier. Then there's the windlass, a massive winding machine positioned at the forecastle, the bow area of the ship. The windlass does all the heavy lifting every time the anchor goes down or comes back up. It runs on a combination of electric and hydraulic motors. Without it, no crew on Earth could pull 165 tons of iron up from the seafloor. And there's one more piece that almost never gets mentioned, the hawse hole, the opening in the bow hole where the chain and anchor pass through. This isn't just a hole. Its diameter is precision matched to the chain running through it, built from reinforced steel and lined with anti-abrasion material, because every time that chain moves up or down, it makes physical contact with that opening thousands of times over the life of the ship. Now the real question, how do pieces this heavy and this complex get installed on a ship that's still being built?
Let's go back to how carriers are actually built. You might already know about the superlift system, a modular construction method where the ship is divided into roughly 200 large sections, each built separately, then joined together. Each superlift can weigh anywhere from 80 to 900 tons. The massive cranes at Newport News Shipbuilding lift them one by one, drop them into position, and weld them together. But those superlifts aren't empty shells. Inside each module, cables, pipes, compartments, and operational systems are already installed before the module ever joins the ship. That includes the forecastle, the area where the anchor system will live. Once the house hole and chain channel are formed as part of the hull structure, anchor installation can begin. And it's not as simple as lowering the anchor from above. It's way more involved. First, a messenger line, a lighter, more manageable temporary rope, gets attached to the end of the anchor chain. That line gets threaded into the ship through the house hole using the windlass and its wildcat, a toothed wheel specifically designed to grab and pull chain links one at a time. The windlass starts turning, the line feeds in, the chain follows, one link at a time, each one 350 pounds, pulled through the house hole until the entire chain is stored in the chain locker, a storage compartment beneath the forecastle.
Then, the anchor itself gets pulled in last, sitting snug inside the hawse hole, ready to be locked into place. Once the anchor reaches its final position, one small but absolutely critical component gets installed: a steel safety pin. This pin locks the windlass so the anchor doesn't suddenly drop on its own weight, because without that pin, the constant 30-ton downward pull would eventually break the windlass completely. One small steel pin, holding back 30 tons. That's not an exaggeration, that's just physics. After installation, the system gets tested, the windlass is activated, the anchor gets slowly lowered to a set depth, then brought back up. Engineers watch every movement. Does the chain pass smoothly through the hawse hole? Does the Wildcat catch each link cleanly? Does the safety pin engage perfectly? And during that test, there's one procedure almost nobody outside the military knows about. Every time the chain comes back up through the hawse hole, it gets rinsed with fresh water. Not seawater, fresh water. Because salt water left sitting on steel is corrosive. If it dries, oxidation starts eating the material from the inside out.
A carrier isn't built once and expected to run forever. Every few years, it enters dry dock, a facility where the water is completely pumped out. The ship rests on keel blocks and side blocks positioned along the hull. Everything below the waterline becomes fully accessible. This is the best opportunity to work on the anchor system. Why does it have to be dry dock? Because when the ship is floating, there's very little you can do. But in dry dock, the full forecastle area and hawse hole can be accessed from outside the hull. The team can inspect the steel around the hawse hole opening, check the wear on every single chain link, measure whether the chain diameter is still within tolerance, and weld over any micro cracks. If the chain needs to be replaced or repaired, the process starts by slowly lowering the anchor via the windlass until it rests on the dry dock floor. The anchor gets laid flat, a crane lifts it onto a trailer, a truck hauls the trailer out of the dock. The anchor gets transported to a service and painting facility. At the facility, the anchor and chain go through a multi-stage process. First, blasting and sanding. Every surface gets stripped of rust, salt deposits, marine buildup, and old paint. Sandblasting machines spray abrasive material until the steel is perfectly clean. Think of it like sanding down an entire piece of iron, but at industrial scale.
Second, primer, a base coat that helps the top coat bond to the steel surface. Without primer, even marine-grade paint won't hold up long in an aggressive saltwater environment. Third, top coat, multiple layers of specialized paint engineered for the marine environment, not hardware store paint. This is formulated to resist corrosion, resist abrasion, and hold up against saltwater pressure for years at a time. Once the anchor is reconditioned and repainted, it gets transported back to the ship for anchor onload, the reinstallation process. And that's not simple either. The anchor gets lifted using a combination of cranes and hydraulics, guided back into the hawse hole and pulled through using the messenger line, exactly like the original installation. The windlass works again. The chain gets pulled in link by link. The safety pin goes back in. The system gets retested. In 2019, USS George H.W. Bush went through this process. That anchor onload was considered one of the final milestones before the ship was cleared to rejoin the active fleet. Not because the anchor is the most advanced system on board, but because without a fully functional anchor system, a carrier simply cannot operate.
Now, this is the part that almost never gets talked about. September 2019, USS George Washington, CVN 73, was in the middle of a major overhaul at the shipyard. Inspectors went through the anchor system piece by piece. The result? One of the anchors needed to be replaced. Standard option, order a new one. Procurement, fabrication, material testing, time-consuming and expensive. But there was another option, one that was more interesting both technically and historically. USS Enterprise, CVN 65, had been decommissioned a few years earlier. The legendary carrier with a history stretching all the way back to the Vietnam War era, the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. When she was decommissioned, the process was slow and gradual, and her systems, including her anchors, were still in solid condition. Inspection technicians checked Enterprise's anchor. Results, it was in far better shape than George Washington's worn-out one, less wear, fewer repairs needed. The decision was made. The anchor from USS Enterprise would be transferred to USS George Washington. This wasn't just the cheaper option, though that was clearly a benefit. It also carried a symbolic weight that runs deep in the Navy community. USS Enterprise is the most iconic name in U.S. Navy history, and a piece of that ship, her anchor, was about to sail again on an actively serving carrier. Enterprise's anchor went through the full process, cleaned, closely inspected, repaired where needed, repainted to new build standards. Then came the anchor unload onto USS George Washington. Same process as before, but this time carrying a very different kind of weight. I don't know how that hits you, but to me, it's not just about saving money. It's the US Navy's way of keeping a legacy alive, that ships can be retired, but what they stood for keeps sailing.
Okay, let's get into how this all works out at sea. Carriers don't always pull into port. Sometimes they anchor offshore, in a bay, near an amphibious operation, or at a staging point before a mission. And every time that happens, the anchor system goes to work. It all starts on the forecastle, the bow deck dedicated specifically to anchor and mooring operations. When the order, drop anchor, comes down from the bridge, a sequence of events kicks off simultaneously. The safety pin is released. The windlass stands ready. The senior anchor officer, usually a chief or petty officer first class, runs the whole operation. He's the direct line between the forecastle team and the bridge. He controls the chain payout speed. He checks every stage. The windlass begins paying out chain. Slow, controlled. And here's a detail most people outside the Navy never hear about. The chain links are painted different colors at specific intervals. Not for decoration. This is a visual navigation system on the forecastle. Every time the crew sees a certain colored link pass through, they know exactly how many feet of chain are already in the water. No counting from scratch, no digital readout. A simple analog system, but absolutely brilliant. One unit of chain length is called a shot, about 90 feet. The forecastle crew communicates with the bridge in shots. 1 shot in the water, 2 shots in the water, and so on, until the anchor reaches a depth that can hold the ship.
Once the anchor hits the seafloor, the flukes, the wide blades of the anchor, dig into the sediment. The ship is then allowed to walk back slightly with the current or wind, which actually drives the anchor deeper. This technique is called setting the anchor. When it's time to raise it, reverse everything. The windlass pulls the chain up, and every link that comes back through the hawse hole gets immediately rinsed with fresh water by a sailor standing by with a hose. Standard procedure. Salt has to come off before the chain goes back into storage. Chain stored wet with seawater corrodes from the inside out. On the other side of the forecastle, mooring line operations run at the same time whenever the ship pulls into port. Carrier mooring lines aren't regular rope. Diameter between 4 and 6 inches. Length between 400 and 600 feet. Made from synthetic fiber, nylon or polypropylene. Chosen for strength, elasticity, and the ability to handle the lateral stress of a 100,000-ton ship rising and falling with ocean swells. And hauling those lines back aboard is real physical work. Heavy, long, and demanding full coordination between deck crew, the bridge, and line handlers on the pier. Lines that make it back on board get stored in dedicated lockers in the forecastle, coiled clean, ready for the next evolution.
Let me put this into a bigger context for a second. Nimitz and Gerald R. Ford-class carriers are the most complex platforms ever built on water. Nuclear reactors, electromagnetic launch systems, next-generation radar, 75 aircraft, up to 5,000 crew members. But in the middle of all that, a failing anchor system can shut the whole ship down. If the windlass fails, the carrier can't anchor in shallow water or near amphibious operations. If the chain snaps in a storm, a 100,000-ton ship drifts with no control. If the hawse hole doesn't seal properly, water enters the ship right next to critical systems. This is why the US Navy treats the anchor system with the same strict standards as the reactor or weapon systems. And it's why dry dock isn't just routine maintenance. Every component, including ones that look primitive like an iron anchor, has to be inspected, measured, and reconditioned with precision. A single chain link whose wear has exceeded tolerance limits, it doesn't have to be broken yet, is already grounds for replacement. Because in a bad storm, one weak link absorbs a pulling load equivalent to dozens of tons. One link fails, the whole chain fails. And a failed chain means 100,000 tons of steel and 5,000 lives adrift without an anchor, literally and figuratively. That's what makes a carrier's anchor system far more than just a big piece of iron dropped into the ocean. It's the last line between stability and total chaos on the open sea.
From one chain link that weighs more than 2 grown men,
to an anchor passed down from a legendary retired ship now sailing again on one still actively serving. A carrier's anchor system is not just a logistical component. It's proof that the most seemingly simple things on paper, iron, chain, a hole in the hull, can become the most critical systems on the most expensive military platform ever built. And the whole operation depends on one thing no technology can replace: people who know exactly what they're doing. The chief on the forecastle who has every color-coded chain link memorized. The dry dock technician checking material tolerances link by link. The sailor standing by with a fresh water hose every time the anchor comes up. It's not the machines that keep an aircraft carrier safe at sea. It's the people.